do you realize that what you're doing is not genuinely creating new experiences with that person? What you're doing is telling them what's been going on in your life that has actually been an experience. So, this is where I think that, especially in friendships, I mean, I see that the world is having such a difficult time with friendships right now. Again, I think one of the most commonly asked questions, like on the internet, is probably how to make friends as an adult. We have the Bumble BFF, we have these different apps. We literally can sit in rooms with hundreds of people that are our age, even our ethnicity, like even all of these external things. We sit in rooms with these people and we still feel more lonely than ever. Why is that? It's because when we cultivate our relationships and our friendships, what we're doing is we are creating that catch up culture. We're not creating new experiences with those people. So, what would it look like if you created a new experience with a friend? So, experiences are things that you're simply doing together and you're bonding because of it. So much research talks about how people in work, even though a lot of times work people aren't like your BFFs, but in work, you do cultivate great relationships because you're constantly working on projects together. Even there's studies that have even come out that say that so many times people tend to cheat on their partners with people that they work with. Why is this? It's because in our relationships, whether our friendships or our relationships, we don't place enough emphasis on doing new things together, getting out of our comfort zone, doing something that you might be awful at and the other person might be great at. We're not used to having experiences. So when we do get placed in situations where we're building projects, we're connecting, we're communicating, that feeds our insides. That feeds us from within because we realize, oh, this is me being an actual part of a community. And this comes down to your biology. You want to be around other people. You want to be having conversations. You want to be hunting for the tribe. Always think and come back to the idea of, what did humans do for the majority of our civilization? It's, how can we be in community? How can we build things together and create experiences? So obviously that's not to excuse anything, when it comes to cheating in relationships or anything. No, please. No. But it's going to show you that we prioritize in certain atmospheres to create things together, and in other ones, I think that our relationships begin to be lost because we're not genuinely cultivating new experiences. We're just sharing what we've already had happen to us. And in these situations, what I was going to say was some examples of things that you can do with someone else, like friendship or even your partner and stuff, is just going out to do something. Going out for a walk at a new city, a new place, somewhere you haven't been before. Doing a pottery class, a painting class, just inviting your friend over, even if you're going to do like an afternoon tea with them. But rather than just like chatting and catching up, you're going to play a board game together. You're going to, build a scavenger hunt. All of the things, honestly, that we did as kids are relevant here, because why do you think that kids have like even better relationships, friendships than adults do? Is because they still have that cultive creativity with people that they're around. In school, they're working on group projects. In school, they're constantly in sports and doing activities, putting on a play, dressing up, putting on makeup, sharing tips and tricks, going to, sporting events. It's all based around activities. So that's how you create the best memories, first of all, and you cultivate the closest relationships, because at that point, you also feel more comfortable to be vulnerable with the person. If you are intimate with someone in the sense of you're doing something intentionally together, to cultivate and create a better relationship, a better friendship, that is going to pour back into you. That's going to be a genuine relationship where you feel comfortable opening up and you feel like you can be vulnerable. And it's going to yield you such better friendships in the end, because you have the experiences that you're going through together, like going through the ups and downs, again, trying things that you might be awful at or other things that you might be great at. And with all of that, you're building tenacity, you're building strength in your relationship. You're building a better chance to be vulnerable and open and be willing to say, you know what, I'm really bad at rollerblading, but even if I fall 10 times, I'm still going to keep going. you know? And I think that a lot of therapists talk about this when it comes to romantic relationships, like people that have been married for so many years or are going through, certain rough patches. It's like, get out of your normal, do something different, take your partner out somewhere that you've never been, cultivate a new experience, get into that childlike energy. But we're not told this with our friendships. It's become normal to have a culture of catch up, a catch up culture, really. And this is where I also want to say that this is also a very cultural thing. Okay, this is not like I guess kind of like a societal thing, but this is not like how the whole world is. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that because we don't base ourselves that much in other cultures. We don't learn the differences that are, like wrapped up. But like, I don't know, are you going to learn about the ins and outs of a country across the world from you, how their friendships work? Like, no, you learn those things by being around people that have lived there, that have other experiences. And this is something, like, growing up here, I've always realized is this catch up culture, this very, like, everything has to be planned and everything has to be in order. And I honestly think that it's driving us further and further apart because the friends that you do have are, I'm not like, of course that they're genuine real friends. I'm sure that you have their best interest, they have your best interest, but you're not growing together in your relationship, You're not challenging things, overcoming them, and because of it becoming a stronger unity, you know? And well, with all that being said, back to the cultural part, not all parts of the world are like this. And that's, I think, something that is a little surprising, It can feel like, well, yeah, that's just the norm. That's like what you do. But again, like, let's look at other cultures. And I think about my mom, growing up. I grew up in a Latino household. My mom is from Chile. And going back to Chile, she lives in like a very rural, like campo de campo place. And it's like, obviously, like my second home. And when I went there, and I've gone there, over years of my life, I've realized that there is always this essence of community, specifically for them when it comes to their hora de té, their once is what they call it. And that's like their tea time, pretty much. And it happens every night, like every family pretty much practices it, especially again more in like rural areas. And every night, like 7 p.m. ish, for like an hour or two, you just sit with your family. You talk, you converse, you make memories, you share things. And this is also the awesome thing, is you can go to someone else's house for La Once and they have not invited you. Like, they did not invite you whatsoever, but you just showed up. And they're like, oh, great, at another place setting. It's like there's this communal aspect of, you don't need to tell me if you're going to come over. Just come over. And I think that here we are like so much in our planning, and it's like, well, what if they're not home? What if they don't pick up the call when I call them randomly? What if I were to FaceTime them right now rather than plan it for the next 2 weeks ahead? And it's like, it does make me think a lot how beautiful our relationships would be if it were like that. Because they were just like, right away we would get rid of that, what's it called, like that persona that you put up when you have to get ready for something. So like dropping in someone, unannounced, some people, again, some cultures are going to think that's super rude. It all depends. But imagine doing that and then catching someone when they're not wearing their like full outfit and full makeup and are super ready. You show up in their house is kind of disorganized and kind of dirty. But when we are able to connect with human beings at that level, we just shed right through that superficial layer. I think that a lot of the friendships that we hold are very superficial because you show up as your best self. You literally show up to a restaurant like dressed up, looking good, looking presentable, having something to say. Like, it's almost like you practice in order to just be in the moment with your friends. But again, real natural friendship or partnership, if you've experienced either, which I know that you have, it goes so much beneath that. There is like the more vulnerable that you're willing to be, the closer that you feel to that person. There's a reason why, like, every education person and teacher and like anyone in the education field will always tell you, like, when you lead with vulnerability, or therapists even, when you lead with vulnerability in your conversations with your students, with your professors, with your family, with your partners, with your friendships, you're able to somehow just, you're able to connect better. So many times when I was studying education in my university, there was times when our teachers would tell us, like, tell the kids that you don't know that. Tell them that you have no idea either. You have no idea what the answer is. You don't know how to do that. You didn't know that that country existed. Like, we're so used to coming back and always trying to be perfect, trying to have that, like, oh well, I know everything. I'm very composed. I'm always like this. No, you're not, and you're not supposed to be. And I genuinely think that if more people understood that friendship is created because of the vulnerability that you share in times when you're not perfect, that's what actually bonds you to someone. You know? That's what actually creates longevity and something that you can actually hold dear to your heart. So it's just, yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing to think about. And again, when it comes to different cultures, you know, I told you the example of my mom, and that was one of my favorite things, like when I'm in Chile and just like stopping by someone's house randomly, unexpected, no phone call, and they just receive you with an open arm and a smile and, you know, like a little treat or dessert that they made. It's like, it's just such a beautiful practice, and I would really love to see that cherished more and done more. And as I say that, I obviously realize that if I'm saying it, it's because I also need to be doing it. And that's a hard thing, you know, because it opens you up to more rejection. But at the same time, if you're able to get over that fear of rejection and just once again go and go and go, you're going to have a better chance of excelling in good friendships. Just like people tell you in businesses, they tell you do everything. Don't think about if you're doing it right, if it's perfect. Literally just put yourself out there, start creating it. Like, right? That's what everyone says. Because they know that even if you fail 100 times, even if you get rejected 100 times, 10 times you won't. 10 times you'll actually make a good contact. 10 times out of, you know, maybe 100, 200 times, you're going to actually make a really good friend. And isn't that the whole point? Again, like, if we are in this catch-up culture, it's because, like, we crave that still. We're always going to crave that, okay? We're always going to crave intimacy and relationships and friendships and passion and experiences. Like, that is what, that's life, right? Those are the best moments of our lives. And if we're able to cultivate that with these people and take the first step of being the weird one or whatever it is, it's like, how beautiful would our world be? You know, there's a reason that I feel like friendship is such an undermined topic. You know, like, how many books are there really on friendship? Compare how many books there are about friendship and how many books there are about relationships or about career or finances or business. Like, it's such a necessary part of humanity to feel connected with a community, but it's something that we're just so not taught. And again, we grow up being in school and sharing all these activities thinking that that's how it's going to be for the rest of your life. And then all of a sudden, one day you come to the realization that as an adult, you have to take so much effort into putting into your relationships. You know, you have to be willing to be rejected. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, to make plans, to be the one that's leading the progress. Because if not, we just wound up staying with the same people that we were with in high school, which, it's not like there's something bad with that, but in your life in general, you should always be trying to expand at least. It should never be like there's 4 seats at my table for friends, and once those spots are filled, that's it. You know, like, no, build a community around you. It's a beautiful thing to be able to do. And honestly, I think that, again, if we did that more, we'd be in a beautiful place. Another thing that I was thinking about, well, just like other cultures that I was talking or thinking about, was my boyfriend is from India, and he was also telling me, like, catch-up culture is not a thing. He's like, that's weird. He's like, of course, friends get together and they'll, like, get a drink or a coffee and, you know, you'll just be chatting. Obviously, like, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's so much that goes into the experiences. And I think what his point of view was what I was saying with catch you at the time when you're not ready for me, you know, knock at your door when I don't know if you're home, call you when I'm having a bad day. not having to schedule something before. And I think it's just such a beautiful thing that other cultures do carry, and I don't see as much here. And I would love to, bring more of that. And just, I think that if you're able to get over that fear of rejection, you actually are going to be able to cultivate better relationships. You're going to have amazing opportunities come up because you're no longer like scared of someone just not accepting you for who you are. You you feel good, you feel open. So yeah, that's my take on catch up culture. Let me know what you think. I'm wondering because this has been on my mind for a long time. And yeah, it's just such an interesting thing. But let me know if you have ever thought about catch up culture like this, or if you were like, damn, like I didn't realize any of this was a thing. Sometimes it's like someone brings it to your awareness and you're like, whoa, that's true. Like I'm not really creating new experiences because I'm always just catching up and telling people what I've done with my life rather than doing things with those people in my life, if that makes sense. So, with that being said, I hope you got something out of today's video. I really liked filming it. So, yes, check out my other content if you're interested. I'm on Instagram and TikTok, and obviously I'm posting constantly here on YouTube. So, with all that being said, thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.